Welcome back to the Daily Crypto Roundup Deep Dive. Today we begin something special. A two-part series that explores how the world lost faith in money and how one anonymous invention tried to restore it. This is part 1, the fall of trust. In the next part, we'll follow Bitcoin's journey from rebellion to reserve, from internet myth to global hedge. It all started with one fragile thing: trust. Every system we've ever built depends on it, from governments and banks to the money in your pocket. For most of human history, that trust was backed by something tangible: gold. It was rare, physical, unforgeable. You could hold it, weigh it, and know its worth. Gold didn't just represent value, it was value. For centuries, the gold standard acted as the planet's anchor. Every major currency, the pound, the dollar, the franc, was pegged to it. As long as each note could be exchanged for a fixed weight of gold, inflation stayed contained and politicians couldn't simply print prosperity. Then came 1971. President Richard Nixon appeared on television and made an announcement that would echo through the decades. He said the United States would temporarily suspend the dollar's convertibility into gold. It sounded bureaucratic at the time, a technical move to defend the currency against speculators, but it became permanent. The moment the link between money and scarcity snapped, the entire global system changed. That single decision ended the gold standard and began the era of fiat currency. Money backed by nothing but government decree and public confidence. At first, it looked like progress. Without gold's limits, nations could borrow freely, fund wars, stimulate economies, and pursue ambitious welfare programs. Growth exploded. The modern age of consumption began. But quietly, something fundamental had shifted. When money lost its link to scarcity, it gained a link to politics. Printing replaced mining. Confidence replaced collateral. Governments discovered that debt could be recycled endlessly as long as people believed in tomorrow. Central banks rose to godlike status. They became the world's pilots, steering inflation, employment, and markets with interest rate tweaks and policy statements. Each adjustment looked precise and scientific, but beneath the surface, every fix required more debt and more faith. The global economy turned into a hall of mirrors, value reflecting confidence, confidence reflecting policy. Through the 80s and 90s, the illusion held. Computers, globalization, and financial engineering created the sense that the old booms and busts were gone forever. Economists even coined a phrase for it: the Great Moderation. But moderation was an illusion built on leverage. Households borrowed, corporations borrowed, governments borrowed. Money was everywhere, but none of it was truly earned. Then came 2008. It began with subprime mortgages in the United States, loans handed out to people who could never repay them. Banks repackaged those loans into complex securities and sold them as safe investments. Credit rating agencies blessed them with AAA stamps. Regulators looked the other way. When defaults began, the chain reaction ripped through every major financial institution. Lehman Brothers collapsed. AIG, Merrill Lynch, and Bear Stearns followed. Trillions in wealth vanished. Retirements, savings, and pensions dissolved overnight. Markets didn't just fall, they froze. The plumbing of capitalism stopped working. And the same governments that had preached free markets suddenly nationalized the losses. The US approved a $700 billion bailout. The Federal Reserve opened emergency lending windows for banks that only weeks earlier had bragged about record profits. Ordinary citizens watched as the people who'd caused the crisis walked away with bonuses, while they lost homes and jobs. Trust died. People began to ask a simple question: if money can be created at will, what does it really mean? For the first time in a century, the public glimpsed the truth that money itself was political. Not neutral, not objective, just numbers moved by decree. And in the midst of that chaos, on October 31st, 2008, a 9-page PDF appeared on a small cryptography mailing list. Its title was simple: Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The author signed as Satoshi Nakamoto. No photo, no address, no history, just code. It wasn't a company pitch or an investment brochure. It was rebellion, disguised as math. Satoshi proposed a world where transactions could happen directly between people, verified by a public network instead of a central authority. No banks, no intermediaries, no bailouts. A financial system where rules replaced rulers. 3 months later, the first block was mined. It contained a single message. The Times, 3rd of January 2009. Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. It was more than a timestamp. It was a manifesto. Bitcoin's birth certificate carried the headline of a failing system. For the first few years, hardly anyone cared. A handful of cypherpunks and libertarian programmers mined coins for fun, discussing block sizes and hash rates in chat rooms. They weren't chasing profits. Bitcoin had no market price. They were testing whether freedom could be encoded. Slowly, a network formed. Every new miner strengthened the chain. Every transaction broadcast across the world proved that trust could be automated. And with each passing day, Bitcoin refused to die. Servers were seized, exchanges hacked, governments banned it. But 10 minutes later, another block appeared, right on time. By 2011, journalists started noticing. WikiLeaks began accepting Bitcoin donations after being cut off by PayPal and Visa. For the first time, the public saw a glimpse of what censorship-resistant money looked like. Then came the European debt crisis. Banks shuttered in Greece and Cyprus. People queued at ATMs to withdraw what they thought was their money, only to find limits and confiscations. Bitcoin, still tiny, offered an idea too radical to ignore. Maybe your wealth shouldn't depend on permission. The price rose, crashed, rose again. But the community kept building. Developers improved wallets, exchanges appeared, merchants experimented. And beneath the surface, ideology met practicality. Libertarians called it digital gold. Technologists saw it as the internet's missing money layer. Economists like Saifedean Ammous described it as sound money for the digital age. By 2017, Bitcoin reached $20,000, and suddenly, everyone cared. Wall Street dismissed it as a bubble, yet quietly prepared products to trade it. Governments feared it, yet studied its technology. Even after brutal crashes, the network never stopped. That resilience was the point. Bitcoin doesn't depend on belief. It creates it through proof. Quick reminder while we're here. Your coins are only yours if you control the keys. Keep them safe with a Ledger hardware wallet, the same tool millions of holders use to secure their stack offline. The link's in the description. Now let's get back to it. In 2020, a test like no other. The pandemic hit, economies closed, and central banks printed at a speed unseen in history. In 2 years, over 40% of all US dollars ever created came into existence. Inflation followed like night after day. Grocery bills doubled, rents soared, and the gap between assets and wages widened into a canyon. People began to understand what Satoshi had warned about. When money can be created without limit, savings die quietly. Bitcoin's fixed supply, 21 million coins ever, started to look less like speculation and more like survival. Corporations took notice. MicroStrategy converted its balance sheet. Tesla added Bitcoin to its treasury. Even El Salvador made it legal tender, the first country to replace trust in the dollar with trust in code. Bhutan quietly mined Bitcoin with hydropower, showing that adoption wasn't just hype. It was happening everywhere from Wall Street to mountain kingdoms. For critics, these moves looked reckless. For believers, they were inevitable. When every currency inflates, scarcity becomes revolutionary. Economist Lynn Alden summed it up best. Bitcoin didn't appear out of nowhere. It appeared from the failures of everywhere else. Michael Saylor called it digital energy, a battery for value that can't be drained by policy. And Balaji Srinivasan described it as the exit door, a way to opt out of broken systems peacefully. Because Bitcoin isn't just an asset, it's an idea. The idea that money should serve people, not power. Every failure of traditional finance, every reckless bailout, every manipulative policy has made it stronger. Each new generation that watches its currency devalue moves a little closer to Satoshi's code. we're witnessing the shift from faith in institutions to faith in mathematics. For the first time in history, money doesn't need permission, only consensus. In the next part, we'll trace how Bitcoin evolved from rebellion to reserve, how it captured Wall Street's attention, entered ETF portfolios, and began redefining what it means to store wealth in the 21st century. If you enjoyed this deep dive, follow the show and leave a 5-star rating. It helps more people discover the series and keeps independent crypto storytelling alive. We'll see you at the top.